توكلت على الحي الذي لا يموت والحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا ولم يكن له شريك في الملك ولم يكن له وليا من الذل وكبره تكبيرا. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي كان موجودا قبل حدوث الأشياء ويبقى بعد فناء الأشياء. تفرد بالأولية والقدم ووسم كل شيء ما عداه بالفناء والعدم، كما قال عز شان كل شيء هالك إلا وجهه وكل نفس ذائقة الموت، وقال كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. سبحان من لا يخلاف سبحان من لا اختلاف النيات ولا يعزو عن المعاصي العباد في الخلوات. سبحان الله الذي منه خلقة العباد وإليه المعاد. فمن يعمل مثقال ذرة خيرا يره ومن يعمل مثقال ذرة شرا يره. نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو الملك الذي لا ينازع في ملكه ولا يضاد في حكمه، يعذب من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء ويرحم من يشاء بما يشاء كيف يشاء. تعذيبه المسيئين عدل وعفوه تفضل. ونشهد أن محمدا سيد المرسلين وخير المبشرين والمنذرين صلى الله عليه وآله الهداة المهديين. من ركب سفينتهم نجا واهتدى ومن تخلف عنها ضل فغرق وهوى. أوصيكم عباد الله بالاعتصام بالتقوى فإنه حبل متين وعروة وثقى. وقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين طغوا في البلاد فأكثروا فيها الفساد وصب عليهم ربك صوت عذاب. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I begin by advising myself and all of you to practice the piety and the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as is the best of provisions. The verse or the verses that I recited are from Surah Fajr, ayat number 11 to 13. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these ayat speaks about specifically those rebellious groups of the past, namely the people of Fir'aun, the people of Ad, and the people of Thamud. And of course, the chapter begins discussing these three individual groups and what they used to do. And eventually Allah says all these transgressed beyond bounds in the lands and heaped therein mischief or mischiefs. Here we listen and we hear the tafasir and we understand and the relevancy of these ayat in today's world. Today, we'll talk and briefly shed light on the concept of corruption in society. What corrupts a society? There are many verses in Quran that begin with the word la tufsidu, right? La tufsidu. Do not corrupt and do not cause fasad in the land. Especially next to things related to economy, if it's considering, the economical status, and as well as, generally speaking, corruption in the land. How can an individual or a society get dragged into this corruption? And what are the means of coming out of it as well? So what we'll mention is 3 probable causes of corruption in society. And at the same time, we'll mention 3 ways of dragging or deriving them out of these issues related to corruption. The first one is, of course, using these ayat that I recited from Surah Fajr, ayat number 11, 12, and 13. We can deduce from these ayat that one of the reasons for the corruption in the land is the rebellion in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. الَّذِينَ طَغَوْا فِي الْبِلَادِ فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهِ الْفَسَادِ فَصَبَّ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّكَ صَوْتَ عَذَابٍ, as these ayat talk about it. What was the first reason? Tughyan, same as Taghut. A few months ago, there was this big debate on a talk show in Pakistani media regarding a self-proclaimed scholar who questioned a woman, a lady, in a discussion, and while the lady had raised some questions regarding Islamic perspective of it, instead of answering that, the person countered by saying, do you know what Taghut is? To which the lady said, I don't know what Taghut is. After which, he gave a rant and he spoke in details and he scolded the youth and the youngsters, especially the women of the society, that they don't have any knowledge of Islam, they don't know what Taghut is. My simple question to that person was that if you were to explain to them what Taghut is, maybe they are unaware with the terminology of the word Taghut, but they know what Taghut means. If you explain to them the meaning of, just like in, any language, the vocab of any language, there are some, strange words, rarely used. Most eloquent people would be able to understand those words, but if you were to give me the translation of that word, then definitely all of the society knows what Taghut is. And hence, the concept then became, it was overblown and it went out of proportion, and all the other discussions that followed regarding the value of people in that society of ours. But here, the word Tughyan, which is same as Taghut, when a person becomes stiff-necked, meaning the person sees arrogance in himself and does not bow in front of the divine justice or the divine rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Fajr says, those who rebelled against Allah in their cities and caused much corruption in them, these are the people who are considered to be Taghut, and these are the people who are rebellious. Innal insana la yatgha, as the ayat number 6 and 7 from Surah Alaq talks about it as well. An ra'ahu istaghna, that this is an individual who has done tughyan. Why an ra'ahu istaghna? Because he or she sees himself to be self-sufficient. So the moment it starts to feel self-sufficiency and there's no reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right away that is Taghut according to the ayat of Quran. So you ask Quran, what is Taghut? What does it mean? It says, Innal insana la yatgha. Insan has indeed rebelled. Rebelled why? Ar-ra'ahu istaghna. Because insan considers himself, some human beings consider themselves to be what? That they don't need God Almighty. They are beyond that. And they can live without the intervention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Indeed, man becomes rebellious when he considers himself to be without need. So when communism was spreading, communists would say capitalism is an element of rebellion. And then investment brings rebellion, therefore let's get rid of it. Let's get rid of investments and bring communism into play. Some who fell for this idea They said, well, Quran says the same thing. If you become rich, had investment, la yatgha, you will then rebel. Therefore, capital and investments are element of rebellion. So in other words, Quran is also promoting communism. That's what they thought. Therefore, the capital and investments are elements of rebellion. Anything that is element of rebellion is against communism, and therefore Islam is also against that. They put two and two together like that. But Quran solved this in this above verse that I recited for you. It said, no, the capitalism or the investment itself is not something which is the cause of rebellion. The moment insan starts to think that because of that I am self-sufficient and not in need, that is the reason of rebellion. So you got to separate the two. You can't just go ahead and pinpoint one and remove the other. So indeed, man becomes rebellious when, ayat of Quran says what? When he considers himself without need. So wealth, investment, and capitalism is an element of rebellion only when a person considers himself to be an ra'ahu staghna. Other than that, investment is a good thing. Capitalism, I'm not here to promote the capitalism in the concept which is in the societies today established, but that is something which is, Islam is not condemning it by any stretch of the imagination. Prophet Sulaiman had a lot of wealth and possessed the biggest kingdom ever. In fact, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. He said, oh Allah, give me a kingdom that has never been given to anyone before me. Something which is no one ever had. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him such a kingdom. But even having that sort of kingdom where he controlled the winds, when he controlled the animals, and his subjects included jinns and other makhluk as well. And it's the biggest of the kingdoms ever, that he could take over anyone he wants to, just like he did over the kingdom of Queen of Sheba, Bilqis, as Surah Sabah talks about it as well, and other places in the Quran. Not once do you find in the kalam of Hazrat Sulaiman tughyan and rebellion. In fact, having possessed all of that, having control over all of that, not just on people, but on jinns as well as animals and the birds and the winds. Look at the control that he has. You know what does he say? What does he attribute this all to? He says this in Surah Naml, ayat number 40. Inna hada min fadli Rabbi. All of this is because of the fadl of my Rabb that he has done upon me. And that is the reason I have all which I have today. So this is by the grace of Allah, which means wealth doesn't intoxicate you. That is a wrong notion. Wealth is not the means of intoxication. The fact that a wealthy would say that it belongs to me, becoming a scholar isn't intoxicating either. Rather, a scholar saying this intellect and this thought is all mine, that is the concept of rebellion. You know, the moment you start associating with yourself, and the moment you become arrogant by it, and the moment you say, well, I'm not in need of anyone else aside from that, this is my innovation. So rather, we should say that it is all due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I have this wealth, if I have this kingdom, hada min fadli Rabbi. If I have this knowledge, if I have this skill, hada min fadli Rabbi. All that belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there's nothing wrong as far as that is concerned. If he didn't inspire me, the humility that should be there, that it was not yours and Allah bestowed upon you, that is the utmost thankfulness towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is a blessing from Allah, mahabbatan minni, as Quran says, and endearing is from me. Allah, out of this mahabbat, he provides that. So now, that's an element of corruption. So number one element of corruption, as we are highlighting three of these elements, number one is rebellion in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How does that rebellion come in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When a person considers himself to be mustaghni and not in need. Number two, following your nafs is also an element of corruption. Of course, I don't need to highlight too much regarding this second concept. We all know how big of an enemy our own nafs is. But for the sake of tabarruk, some of the ayat of Quran highlight this concept very clearly. Surah Mu'minun, ayat number 71 says, وَلَوِ اتَّبَعَ الْحَقِّ أَهْوَاءَهُمْ لَفَسَدَتِ السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ. It is interesting to know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوِ اتَّبَعَ الْحَقُّ. If haqq does the ittiba of their hawa and hawas, meaning that which is true, that which is haq, is following their hawa and hawas. Had the truth followed their desires, the heavens and the earth would have surely fallen apart. La fasadat samawat wal ard, along with those that are within them. Here, if we follow our desires, not only we can corrupt ourselves easily, but we can corrupt everything that is around us as well, as it is apparent from this ayat of Quran. We speak based on our desires, we give vote based on our desires, we choose a profession based on our desires, and we conduct our marriages based on our desires. And you see, when we do these things based on our desires, more than often the results are not favorable. For time being, it seems like the right thing to do, but later on things transpire and we understand that was a grave mistake that we had made. Quran says, if we went after desires, the earth and the skies will be corrupted. Look at the element of corruption, that a nafs can go ahead and corrupt that which is in the surrounding. On the contrary, there's a path of Islah as well. Surah Baqarah 12 points out of Surah Baqarah ayat number 12 points out the points of corruption. It says, Ala innahum humul mufsidun. Behold, they are themselves the agents of corruption, but they are unaware of that. So a lot of time, those people who are the cause of this corruption themselves are the ones most heedless of the fact that they are the reason behind it. And that's where it's the compound murakkab jahl comes into play. When a person does not know that he is the cause of the corruption that is happening in the surroundings. So following your nafs becomes what? One of the reasons for the fasad and corruption. Number 3. Third reason in this regard is the real honor comes from being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The moment obedience is shifted from Allah to someone else, this is where corruption starts to come about. And there's so many examples of that as well. The moment you bow in front of someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm not talking about those who used to worship the idols, those who used to bow, and today even those who worship the idols and they bow and prostrate in front of them. In general, when you disobey Allah and you obey someone other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is one of the causes of corruption as well. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam says, Faja'al, when he left his family, his wife and his daughter, his wife and his son, Hazrat Ismail, in that valley where he says, Oh Allah, I have left my family in this barren land. Bewadin ghayri zi zar'in. What is the dua that he makes following that? He says, Faja'al af'idatan minan nasi tahwi ilayhim. Allah, I'm leaving my wife and my child in these plains, in this desert, in this valley over here, which is barren, by the way. That's what the valley was. But what does he say? He says, so make the hearts of a part of the people fond of them. I'm leaving them over here because of your instructions. But I want you to make people like them. If they like them, then they will remain harmless. They will not be harmed. But if people don't like them, then I will be constantly worried about my wife and my kid. You have given me another task. I have to leave them here. I can't be overlooking them. I have to be away. As much as I want to be here to take care of my family, I'm leaving them over here. But I want you to turn the hearts of look at the dua. I want you to turn the hearts of the people in their favor, so people like them. When they like them, they will remain safe. This is an ultimate dua that Hazrat Ibrahim made for his family. Is the Kaaba very beautiful? That's where Hazrat Ibrahim had left his family, right? You used to hold the story of Hazrat Hajar running between the two mountains of Safa and Marwa. What is the beauty in Kaaba? It's just a few black blocks stacked on top of each other. There isn't much engineering skill in it. But just one prayer from Hazrat Ibrahim is part of this Kaaba which turned the hearts of the people towards it. Hazrat Ibrahim made the dua, oh Allah, turn the hearts of the people toward my family. Allah turned the hearts of the people toward his house as well. And look at the millions and the millions of people, the respect and the love they have for this house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Baytullah, which is not an engineering masterpiece, no disrespect. Which is not, the most complicated building in the world, which requires, skill and complications. A few blocks stacked on top of each other, cubicle, and that's it is. No paints, nothing of that sort is needed. The beauty of Kaaba is where? It's the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The moment it's associated with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it becomes beautiful itself. You don't need any of the beautification to be associated with it. So the moment someone bows in front of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that leads to corruption. Hazrat Ibrahim is taking on the challenge to leave his family, but it still is obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, relies upon him, makes dua so that the hearts of the people are turned toward them. So the false honor is an element of corruption. Hazrat Ibrahim did not seek any false honor. He sought honor only through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So 3 reasons are mentioned. A rebellion in front of Allah. Number 2, the honor comes from being obedient to Allah. And number 3, following your nafs is also an element of corruption. Now very quickly, the 3 reasons or how to decrease it or how to tackle and deal with corruption. Number 1, people look up to the leaders of a society. The examples of society's leader and the leadership becomes that much more important. Quran in Surah Naml says, قَالَتْ إِنَّ الْمُلُوكَ إِذَا دَخَلُوا قَرْيَةً أَفْسَدُوهَا. When the kings enter a town, they devastate it. This is how it used to be. If we are concerned about corruption in the society, we can easily blame the leadership for causing it. If anything happens within our community, you can right away blame the leadership of, the center. They're not doing their job properly. All the marriages that are happening in wrong houses and, all the marriages that are falling apart, all the divorces that are taking place, all the problems that our children are facing, the masjid is not doing its job properly. You can easily blame the masjid for not doing its job. Why? Because you can easily blame the leadership for causing it. But we must all play a role in preventing it from corruption. If any corruption that you see around, don't run it away and say, well, it has nothing to do with me. What can I do? I'm not in the leadership role. We're all answerable, of course, at different levels. Quran highlights, وَإِذَا تَوَلَّى, the one who has higher post or the rank has a bigger crime as well, and more responsibilities come with it. Even when you're associated with someone in a higher position, your responsibility changes drastically as well. There's a Persian proverb in this regard, Har ke bamish bish, barfish bishtar. Says what? The taller the roof, the more snow it'll collect. If you have a bigger house and the roof is big, you're gonna get more snow, brother. If you have a bigger lawn, you're gonna have, if you have a big, let's go, driveway is a better example, I guess. If you have a bigger driveway, the more snow that you'll have to plow off of your driveway. I don't have a driveway, for example. I don't have to worry about a big snowstorm coming because HOA will take care of my property. You'll have to take care of it yourself. So the one who has bigger lawn, the one who has bigger roof, the more snow will be there. It conveys the idea that the greater wealth, the greater power or responsibility comes from challenges and burdens as well. And that is the reason when Quran talks about the wives of the Rasulullah in Surah Ahzab, it says, Ya nisa an-nabi, lastunna ka'ahadin minan nisa'i. O the wives of the Prophet, you're not ordinary women. You're not like the women of other people. Why? Min kunna man ya'ti min kunna bifahishatin mubayyinatin yudha'af lahal adhabu di'fain. You're not ordinary women. Now you're associated with Rasulullah. He's not an ordinary man. You're not ordinary women now because you're associated with him. Now because you're associated with him and you no longer are ordinary, what happens to you as well? Of the wives of the Prophet, whoever of you commits a gross indecency, her punishment shall be doubled. Just merely being associated with Rasulullah, now your punishment becomes twice as much. But if it was an ordinary woman, they would have done the same thing. Their punishment would have been half of yours. So if a religious man, a scholar, or a ruler commits a sin, it will set a bad example for others. An-nasu ala dine mulukihim. People look up to those who are, amongst them in a status, but people say, oh, so-and-so is also corrupted. He has also usurped millions and millions. So what if I usurp hundreds and thousands? They have usurped millions. I'm only usurping hundreds and thousands. So my crime is still less than that. No. Leaders' corruption is contagious. It gets to the community as well. And therefore, one of the ways of removing the fasad is to have your leadership to be pure and pak and without any corruption. And that is the reason we believe after the Prophet in those who are themselves to be infallibles, cannot be corrupted, and are void of any sort of corruption. Salawat biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Second reason of getting rid of fasad and corruption from the society is dealing strongly with offenders and intruders of people's rights. If you don't have severe punishment and deal with the intruders and the offenders, then it'll give others the chance to go ahead and commit the same crime over and over. That's why we have rules, that's why we have laws, and that's why we have punishments set by the law of the land. If someone breaks this law, they will punish. Why is there severe punishment? We don't want the repetition of that breaking of that law. Sometimes we have to show harshness to condemn offenders and intruders. They ask, is Islam a religion of mercy and love, or is it a rough and a tough religion? Answer is both. Islam is lovable and merciful at most places, but of course, if there is an offense, and if there's an intruder, and if there are corruption, then Islam is going to go ahead and be holding those people accountable, and there's severe punishment, there's retribution. Ayat of Quran says that, وَفِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. In qisas, in retribution, there's hayat for you, there's life for you, all those who possess intellect. Why there's hayat for you? There's a falsafa behind it. Inshallah, you'll look it up yourself under the tafsir of this ayah. The fact that Islam is a religion of mercy, it is because we see reference to mercy in thousands of occasions in Quran, where we see the words Rahmat and Rahman and Rahim, and the mercy on all ends. Even when it comes to speaking about our Prophet, it says Muhammadun Rasulullah walladhina ma'ahu ashadda'u alal kuffar ruhama'u bainahum. That those who are with him, they are severe against the kuffar, but they are merciful and they are compassionate amongst each other. So dealing with crime and offenders strongly can also diminish and remove corruption from the society. Number 3 and last, and I'll conclude with that as well. That is more of a local issue than the general. Because the first two are the solutions which are, of course, in a general sense. The leadership of the community and the society and maybe a country, that has to be pure and pak in order for the society to be pure and pak. And number 2, as you mentioned, that dealing strongly with the offenders. That has to be the case as well. People should not be unchecked, and they should not get away with the crimes that they have committed. Otherwise, this will become a means and norm in the society. We see third one is more of a local issue, where make marriage easy, the corruption will decrease. One of the internal corruption that insan has, and that has to do with tazkiyah nafs. Not corruption in relation to money laundering, not corruption in relation to killing and taking lives and all that stuff and fraud. Rather, the akhlaqi corruption. That has to be dealt with as well. So make marriage easy, the corruption will decrease. Let's make the process of marriage easier for young people. And therefore, that's the hadith in Wasail al-Shia, where Prophet of Islam said, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ خُلُقَهُ وَدِينَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوهُ تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. Rabbi says, Prophet said, if a proposal comes for your son or daughter and their akhlaq and their deen satisfy you, 2 things you should be looking for, aside from wealth and bank balance and all that stuff. Looking for 2 things, their akhlaq and their deen is satisfying you, then you marry them with them. If you don't, then this will lead to major corruption in the land. And that has to do with the internal and the corruption of the khuluq of insan and the akhlaqiyat of insan. Of course, this is something where we wanted to highlight under these ayat of Surah Fajr, ayat number 11, 12, and 13. In regards to corruption, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to be able to understand the commands and the teachings of Ahl Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam, and so that we play a role in diminishing and removing corruption from the society. Inna ahsan hadith wa ablagh al-mawidha kitabullah a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم وافر الدم وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها عن السيئات ولم يجاز بها سبحان من لا يزداد ولا معصي لعباد إلا كرما وجودا ولا كثرة الذنوب إلا عفوا وصفا نشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف على العباد بجوده والأفراد المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين بعثه رحمة للعالمين لقد أمركم الله في محكم كتابه بالصلاة على نبيه وحبيبه فقال تعليما لكم وتشريفا للصفي إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. Before I conclude the second portion of the khutbah, just very quickly, after almost 1 year of tragic war, millions displaced forcibly, schools, hospitals, and places of worship continue to be bombed. More than 41,000 innocent civilians, women and children and elderly people, just in Gaza, not even talking about Lebanon, killed by design, more than 91,000 injured, and some 16,000 more children and women is still under the rubble. Call urgent attention of global humanity to save the succeeding generations from the scourge of war. If there is any global conscience and morality is still alive and intact. A lot of time we question ourselves as well. While the world remains silent, what has happened to the Muslims as well? There are many reasons why 2 billion Muslims in the world, they're still silent, some because of their personal interest, some governments because of their fear of what will happen to them in future. But the enemies of Muslim world, which we need to blame ourselves, is that we lack education, and that is the reason poverty and conflict is there amongst ourselves. The main challenges hindering the progress of Muslim world were spoken by many of the world leaders already is lack of education, poverty, and conflict. You put this formula together, you deprive someone of education, it leads to poverty. Once there's poverty, you'll easily be able to create conflict amongst them. These factors prevent Muslims from aiding Palestinians as well as the Lebanese today and advancing as a community. Just a quick example and I'll conclude. Battle of Trench, Jang-e-Ahzab, highlights the importance of knowledge and development, emphasizing that Islam promotes the pursuit of knowledge and self-improvement. Neglecting education leads to a downward spiral resulting in poverty and division. These three issues are interconnected as well, with improvement in one area triggering positive developments in other areas. What will happen? Unity, knowledge, and education will come about, are seen as the key weapons in overcoming the challenges that we face as a society and as a Muslim ummah today. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He unites us all on the cause of the blood of the Muslimin that is being shed right in front of our eyes. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين وشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وإمام المسلمين وقائد الغر المحجلين أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى سيدة النساء العالمين وبدة خاتم النبيين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام. اللهم صل على مولانا صاحب الزمان ما هي آثار البدع والطغيان هادم ابنة الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع بغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام. ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه، وتفضل على أمرائنا المؤمنين بمزيد التوفيقات وازدياد الإقبال وعلو الدرجات. اللهم افعل بنا ما أنت أهله ولا تفعل بنا ما نحن أهله، بجاه محمد وآله المعصومين صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين. اللهم من يذكروا فتنفع ذكر إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. الله أكبر الله أكبر، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله، أشهد أن عليا ولي الله، أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة، حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح، حي على خير العمل، حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الرحمن الرحيم، مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم، صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض، الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين، وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا، بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائمة قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته أقوم وأقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين بجاه محمد وآله الطاهرين الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده رب صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف الله أكبر الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد تسبيح جناب فاطمة الزهراء سلام الله عليها. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. All of us together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة لابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Jummah Mubarak to you all. Let us recognize the sponsors for today's Jummah lunch. It is the family of Mr. and Mrs. Mehboob Merchant. Let's recite Surah Fatiha for their deceased relatives as well as yours. Surah Fatiha. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alamin ar-Rahmanir rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So a couple of announcements that inshallah there is a workshop that is scheduled for November 2nd, Saturday. The flyer is on the screen in the foyer area as well. has to do with finances, wealth management. A lot of experts will be in presence, so do register for this event. That'll be Saturday, November 2nd, inshallah. Aside from that, inshallah, tomorrow being Saturday, we will have Salatul Fajr at 6 a.m., followed by Quran Circle and breakfast, and inshallah, we'll have Salatul Fajr on Sunday as well, followed by Nahj Balagha, commentary, and inshallah, breakfast afterwards. Before I invite Brother Adil to make an announcement, we have a CARE representative amongst us as well, and I will ask Sister Maheen to turn on the mic and share a few thoughts from CARE and a message from them.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Maheen Mumtaz, and I'm the Government Affairs Associate at CARE New Jersey. I'm here today to talk about the importance of civic engagement and voting in the upcoming election. I know that these are unprecedented times. We're witnessing heartbreaking events like the genocide unfolding in Gaza, while our own community grapples with challenges such as rising Islamophobia and hate crimes. Now more than ever, it is essential for us to come together and make our voices heard. We need to support candidates who will advocate for our rights and address the pressing issues that matter to us. CARE New Jersey wants to ensure that members of our community don't sit this election out. Instead, we encourage you to become educated voters by researching the candidates running for office and understanding their positions on the issues that resonate with you personally. One key resource to help you with this effort is CARE New Jersey's 2024 Congressional Scorecard. This tool is essential for understanding where your congressional representatives stand on key issues that impact our community. The scorecard includes the voting records of New Jersey's congressional representatives on important bills, resolutions, and letters that CARE New Jersey either supports or opposes. With many of these representatives running for re-election, we strongly encourage everyone to review the scorecard ahead of the upcoming election. Please be sure to stop by our table outside for more information. We have a QR code that you can easily scan to access the scorecard and other election-related materials. I also want to clarify that as a 501c3 nonprofit organization, CARE New Jersey cannot support or endorse any specific candidate or political party. However, we are dedicated to educating our community about the importance of voting and providing you with the resources to become informed and empowered voters. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them outside. Thank you for your time, and Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I just like to give you some information that the Masjid has now launched the program for employer gift matching. There is a brochure outside the poster that you can also get some more details. Just really 2 or 3 important points about it. It is not any extra donation that you have to give. Most employers are matching donations that you give. You can do it to Sadiq School or to the Masjid. Some employers will not match to places of worship, so we have an option to donate to Sadiq School also. All you have to do is go to the company website, or on our website there's a link that you can click, and it'll give you all the information about what needs to be done to be able to participate. People that are already on our ACH plan can also use this, so they can sign up and have that amount deducted from their paychecks, and then stop the ACH over here. And basically say if you're giving $100 a month, your employer will give an extra $100 a month, so the Masjid will get double the money. Again, you're not giving anything extra, but the Masjid will get double. You can also set it up so if you're giving homes and you calculate your amount for the year, you can have that taken out on a monthly basis from your paycheck. And again, the employer will match it. So effectively, by just switching how you're giving your money, you are able to help the Masjid and help us get double the money. If you guys have any more questions, call me. Other important thing is most employers have a deadline that you have to do it before or during open enrollment. For calendar year companies, the open enrollment will end soon, so please look at this as soon as possible. Big techs, pharmaceuticals, a lot of technology companies, telecom companies over here I know from experience that they are matching $5,000 to $25,000 a year. So let's take advantage of whatever you guys are doing, donating, and try and just switch it through employer matching, and inshallah we'll all benefit from this. Any questions, just let me know. You can ask me.
Let us recite dua for all of those people who are in need of dua, those who are suffering, struggling, going through a difficult time, remembering the people that are injured in Gaza, in Lebanon, and all over the world, globally and as well as locally. Let's recite this ayah karima 5 times together. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 ويجعلكم خلفاء الأرض أإله مع الله قليلا ما تذكرون. اللهم صل على. Before proceeding to Salatul Asr, please fill in the gaps wherever you see so that we have a connection all the way till the back. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده الله أكبر بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله أكبر اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وربي أدخلني مدخل صدق وأخرجني مخرج صدق واجعل لي من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمد الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العلى وبحمده الله أكبر استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه الله أكبر سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله وقوته. أقوم. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله وقوته يقوم ويقعد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. تسبيح.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام، وأسأله أن يتوب علي توبة عبد ذليل خاذ فقير بائس مسكين مستكين مستجير، لا يملك لنفسه نفعا ولا ضرا ولا موتا ولا حياة ولا نشورا. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من نفس لا تشبع، ومن قلب لا يخشى، ومن علم لا ينفع، ومن صلاة لا ترفع، ومن دعاء لا يسمع. اللهم إني أسألك اليسر بعد العسر، والفرج بعد الكرب، والرخاء بعد الشدة. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك، لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. اللهم
السلام عليك نبي الله، السلام عليك يا حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا خيرة الله، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك وعلى جدك وأبيك وعلى أمك وأخيك ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء، السلام عليك معين الضعفاء والفقراء، السلام عليك شمس الشموس وعنيس النفوس، أيها المدفون بأرض توسى لي ابن موسى الرضا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك صاحب الأسر والزمان، السلام عليك إمام الإنس والجان، السلام عليك شريك القرآن، أجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته. والسلام. There's a request for Surah Fatiha for Marhum Jafar Hussain Jafari. Surah Fatiha. Bismillah.